Hi everyone, this is Renier Castellanos. Today we're going to analyze another game in the French defense, but this time we'll have a look at the Tarrasch variation for those who like to play 92, and we're going to see a sideline that Michael Adams with white plays from time to time. Okay, this line goes if e4, e6, 92, and then c5. Of course, there is the main move is knight f6, but c5 is also often played. Now it takes on d5, queen takes, and d takes on c5. This is the move I was talking about before. The idea is simple. White just wants to develop the pieces with knight f3, bishop c4, queen e2, and short castle, and avoid all the complications in the main lines and basically avoid theory. Bishop takes on c5, knight f3, bishop c4, and queen c6. Other moves don't change much the character of the position. The queen is well placed on c6 because in the future it can go to c7 or just stay on c6 and continue with b6 and bishop b7 with some pressure on that diagonal, attacking g2 all the time, pinning the knight on f3. Okay, now queen e2 with the obvious threat of bishop b5, but also is part of the plan. The queen belongs on e2, and now black played castle. I think I forgot to mention who is with the black pieces. Is Martinovic, a grandmaster with 2500 rating. Now he played castle. Another move could be knight bd7, which was played by Renier with the black pieces against Adams as well. And then after knight b3, a6, Adams plays a4, bishop d6, castle, queen c7, and now a5. I think white is already a little better, not much, but a little. Castle, and now according to Adams he should have played knight bd4. And the idea is that after knight e5 he can take on e5 and go back with the other knight to f3. Alright, but back to the game. After castle, white also played castle, and now knight bd7. Many people have played this way. The idea is to continue with b6 and bishop b7. But I don't really like this strategy for black. I prefer the move a6 with the idea of b5, a more active development, I think. In case of a4, knight bd7, knight b3, bishop d6. For me it's important to preserve the bishop. After rook d1, queen c7. That's probably the best move. And now in case of a5, black can play knight e5. Knight takes, bishop takes, and now the pawn on h2 is under attack. And if he plays h3 or g3, black can continue with bishop d7 and bishop c6, finishing the development, and his position is okay. Black has no serious problems in this position. Okay, after rook d1 in this same line, black played knight b6. This is another game by Adams against Borovikov from Ukraine. Then after bishop d3, knight d5, knight a5, queen c7, knight c4, black is under pressure. After bishop e7, a5, white is controlling the square e5, and basically black has trouble developing the bishop on c8. Alright, in the game, let's go back to knight bd7, then knight b3. Black continues without wasting any time. He just continues his development with b6, and now knight takes on c5, queen takes on c5. This position has been played a few times, and the results have been acceptable for black. Now they always play bishop e3. And after queen c7, rook d1, bishop b7, rook d4. This is the way Tiviakov played with white against Grandmaster Malakato in France in 2008. The idea of doubling rooks or playing bishop f4. Then rook c8, bishop b3, and now black played in that game knight e5, which was not a very good move. Black shouldn't trade knights in these positions. He should go after the bishop on b3 with knight c5. Knight takes, queen takes, and to get a picture of what type of endgames and middle game positions white wants, is exactly this type of positions with the two bishops and the queen side majority. Now after rook d8, rook d1, rook takes on d4, h6, bishop c2 with the idea of consolidating with b3 and f3, queen c7, b3, rook d8, f3. This is an important move in this type of structures. We're going to talk about it later on. The idea of f3 is to restrict the bishop on b7 and also the knight on f6, placing the pawns on light squares. And after rook takes on d4, bishop takes, white enjoys a clear advantage because of the two bishops, basically. Okay, but back in move 15, after bishop b3, instead of knight e5, which is a mistake, then there is knight c5, which was played by Martinovic, the same guy we're seeing the game against Adams, the main game. He had this position before and he played this move knight c5, which is very good. Now white should have played bishop f4, and after bishop f3, queen takes on f3, e5, bishop g3, keeping the pawn on e5, pin, then rook e8. The position is about equal. Black is going to take on b3, and he doesn't really have any big problems. Position should be considered equal. In that game, after knight c5, white continued with the same plan that Tiviakov played, but the position is completely different, so it doesn't make sense. White plays c4, and after the take on b3, the queen side would be very weak. So black reacted with e5, which was very good. Rook d1, knight takes on b3, of course, before he could play bishop c2, pawn takes, and now knight g4. Black is threatening e4 with the mate threat on h2, so h3, e4 anyway, takes on g4, takes on f3, and after he takes f5, very strong move, and black has a very strong initiative. A lot of pressure on the diagonal, a8, h1, pressure on f3, the queen can go to f7 and g6. Eventually black won the game. Okay, but the position after queen takes on c5, instead of bishop e3, Adams played a novelty that I believe changes the valuation of the position. He played b3, and that's a very good move. He wants to play bishop b2, bishop d3, and then c4 in case of if black doesn't do anything, or just bishop b2, rook a1, and rook f e1, finishing the development and keeping the advantage of the two bishops, preventing all kind of counterplay by black. The game went bishop b7, bishop b2, and now black played the move queen h5, which is the start of the troubles for him. For example, if instead he plays rook d8 after rook d1, rook c8, rook e1, white has a nice position. He wants to play knight d4. There is, or knight e5. There is very little black can do. Of course, he's not lost or anything, but the point is that I don't see good plans for black. It's easier to play with white. That's the assessment I think. He has the two bishops. He doesn't have weaknesses. White is slightly better here. Okay, black played queen h5, which seems like a positional mistake, and Adams now plays a good move, which turns the game into an endgame with the positional advantage of the two bishops and the queen side majority in the pawn structures. After queen takes on e2, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes. This position should probably be considered a technical win. At that level, I think at least the game could be considered winning for white. I believe for these grandmasters so strong, these type of positions are hopeless with the black pieces. Now rook c8, c4. This is the way to play. Placing the pawns in light squares. The next step is to play f3, king f2, rook d1, and then a4 and a5, advancing the queenside pawns, creating weaknesses on black's camp. Now black played rook d8. Natural moves, but natural moves don't seem very effective here. It's better to know if your opponent wants to play f3, then it's better to play knight e4, trying to activate the pieces as fast as possible. Now in case of f3, f6, bishop b2, knight c5 with the idea of e5 now, rook d1, e5. But after rook d2, white is still better. He wants to double rooks, play rook d6, for example, in case of rook d8, he plays rook fd1, and the bishop sometimes can go to c2 with bishop d1 and bishop c2. That way it's easier to push b4. Alright, but this is another game. In the game he played rook fd8, rook d1, king f8, too passive I think, and then f3. White, the idea of f3 is to restrict the activity of the black pieces, the bishop on b7 and the knight on f6, and also to centralize the king with king f2 and king e3. King e7, king f2, knight e8, and now black wants to play f6. But white plays a4, starting the offensive on the queen side. He wants to play a5, take, and rook a7. Rook takes on d1, rook takes, and rook d8. Now it's important about these endgames to not trade the two rooks. Just one is enough. Bishop d4, avoiding the trade of the second rook. The thing is that after rook takes on d8, king takes, white loses pressure. He's still better, but he doesn't have the same pressure in the position as he has with the rook. The threats are not so strong. For example, after bishop d4, f6, c5, e5, bishop e3. Of course, white is still better, but he has to use the king, and the two bishops alone are not enough to win. He still needs to make a lot of progress here. If you can see now, with bishop d4, he's threatening a5 and bishop a7, or a5 with bishop c5. There are tactical ideas that black must be careful with. Bishop c6, a5. Now in case of b takes on a5, white plays bishop c5 check, forcing knight d6, and then bishop a7. And after rook d7, bishop c5. Other moves instead, you can see they're not so good. If you move the king, then bishop b6 or bishop c5 also. Besides, the king doesn't have any good squares to go, so rook d7, bishop c5, rook d8, and then king e3. White keeps black's knight on d6 pin, and what he wants is to take on d6 on the next move and play rook a1, which would win the pawn on a5. I think is easy. Okay, so black played, after a5 he played rook b8, defending b6. b4, advancing the queenside pawns, the idea of b5. Another option could be a takes on b6, takes, and rook a1. Still very clear for white. He's threatening rook a7 check, and after rook b7, bishop b6, for example. But Adams played b4, which is also very strong. f6. In case of b takes on a5, again bishop c5, king f6, and then b5 would be winning for white. For example, bishop b7, bishop takes, rook a8, bishop d4 check, king g6, and then c5. The two pawns are too strong. Alright, f6, b5. White is making enough progress to win, and then after bishop d7, c5. And here black resigns. He starts losing material. In case of if he takes on a5 after c6, he loses a7, and the rook only can go to a8, and then after b6 there is no way to prevent b7. So, and if he takes on c5, he loses with bishop c5 and bishop a7. Very simple. For example, c6, and on the next move bishop takes on a7 and b6. Okay, now we're going to look at another example of the structure of the pawn structure, 3 against 2, and also with the bishop pair. This example is very interesting. You will see. Okay, this is the position. It's a game between Sosonko with the white pieces and Smyslov as black. Now, white has a positional advantage. He has much more activity of the pieces. He's threatening rook d1. Black still cannot castle because if he castles now, the white plays knight takes on d7 and rook 8 to d1. So black is forced to give up the bishop for the knight. And this position looks very similar to the Adams game that we were just looking at. So the plan should be the same. After after rook d1, bishop c6, white plays f3. Same idea. Idea is to restrict black's minor pieces, especially the bishop. Rook d8. Of course, white is willing to trade one rook. And you can see here that even if your opponent has the open file, it doesn't matter so much because the two bishops control all the key squares, d3, d2 and d1. So the open file in this case is irrelevant. You can see that the strategy in this type of position is first to restrict the activity of your opponent's pieces and then start advancing the queenside pawns, and that's what white does now. He plays a4. Knight d7, rook e2, knight c5. Okay, white cannot play a5 now because after knight a4 black has counterplay. He's attacking c3 and also b2, and there are no squares for the bishop. So he plays b3. Same structure as in Adam's game. That's why I mentioned that this type of positions are the advantage. If you know what you're doing, you will be successful at least 2 out of 3 times. It's important to place the pawns in the color of the opponent's bishop, and important to control your opponent's counterplay all the time. Okay, with b3, white wants to play king f2, rook d2, and also maybe a5 first and then b4. That's another plan. Alright, now black played b6, a5, knight b7, and now a6. A very good move, and that pawn will be a key factor in the outcome of the game. You can see that fixing the pawns on dark squares on the queen side, those pawns could be a target for the bishop on c3 later on. After knight c5, b4, the pawn cannot be taken because of b5. Black is forced to play knight a4, and now a very nice move is rook d2, taking over the open file before moving the bishop. The thing is that if black takes on d2, after bishop takes, white has the easy way, bishop f4 and bishop b8. Or in any case, also bishop e3 with the idea of bishop takes on a4 and bishop takes on b6 after bishop takes b6, pawn takes on b6 and b5 with the idea of a7. For example, in case rook d2, bishop takes, just for fun, e5 to prevent well, it's not even possible because b5 wins a piece. So there is, this position could be lost for black. I mean, not could be, is probably lost. So after rook d2, black is forced to play rook c8, and now bishop d4. The game looks more and more like Adam's game. Bishop e8, bishop b3. Now the idea is to play rook a2, trapping the knight. King f8, king f2. Still, it's better to wait. Rook a2 immediately allows black to play b5, and rook c1 check and follow with knight c3 with some counterplay. f6, f4, preventing e5. Of course, white wants to keep the bishop on d4, and now black plays b5. If he plays king e7, then after rook a2, b5, white simply takes on b5, and after knight c3 he plays rook c2, pinning the knight. The pawn on a7 is hanging, and the knight is in trouble. Black loses material. So b5 was played now, and then bishop takes on a4. White turns the endgame into a winning position, because after pawn takes on a4, bishop a7, the pawn on a6 decides. When black captures on c4, bishop c5 check, blocks the rook on c4, so he cannot go back and stop the pawn on a6. And after king f7, if he plays a7, of course, black has bishop c6, but if he plays rook d6 like he did in the game, there is no way to prevent a7 and a8. He could play rook c2, but that's just a couple of checks after king e3, rook c3, king d2. So Smyslov resigns in this position. Okay, this is the end of the lesson. I hope you enjoy and learn something about the structures that we just saw in these two games. And watch out for a new video. Okay, don't forget, if you live in Montreal and want to contact me for lessons, feel free to do so. Thank you everybody for watching, and see you again on the next video. Bye bye.